I've not met a family caregiver who at the end of the day said to themselves, I crushed it today. Like I was so good today, right? Usually at the end of the day, the family caregiver is categorizing all the things that they wish they could have done better or they feel they should have done better.
Tips from Trestle is brought to you by eMenu Choice Point of Sale, Wiseox AI, and Benny Keith Foodservice. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality Podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Today on Tips from Trestle, I'm joined by Michelle Magner. Michelle is the founder and CEO of Inspired Care, a family support and education program that senior living communities and other companies that support seniors and their families subscribe to as an annual membership. She has been a caregiver to 5 family members, worked in senior living for many years, and is a certified dementia practitioner and is currently working on her PhD in gerontology. Michelle, thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, we are here at the Assisted Living Association of Alabama conference. And when I saw the agenda of people speaking, like yours was one of the first presentations that caught my eye, because my company, we're kind of looking to be more support in broader community experience. And I think what you do and what you talk about, that transition and memory care, it's just so important. And so, but before we dive into your presentation and get a little sneak peek, tell us a little bit about how you got into senior living. Give us a little bit more detail about your company and how you approach things.
Yes. When I was 27 years old, I became the primary family caregiver for one of my grandmothers. Over the course of the next 10 years, I ended up being the primary caregiver for both of my grandmothers and helped them through the final years of their life, where they stopped driving, made that transition to senior care through end of life. When I was in the senior living communities, I just felt there was this really special connection that humans were having with one another. Yeah. And I knew I was home at the time raising children. And I knew that when I went back to work, senior living was where I wanted to be. That led me to have a career in senior living. And over the course of those years, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia. And I was working in a memory care at the time, and which I think subconsciously was intentional. Like I didn't realize when I took that role, we knew something was happening. And then I cared for my father-in-law who had terminal cancer. So just a lot of family caregiving, senior living experience. I just saw this space where we know families need more support. Yeah. So that is what led me to create Inspired Caring.
Doing what I do, where I think about all of the services inside a community, right? I think about, is the food being served? Are we doing really great resident engagement? Is the front desk answering the phones politely? Those kind of functional things that have to happen. Sometimes that caring component, that connection piece can get lost. And so having been more deliberate and intentional about that, I think what you're talking about is kind of eye-opening when you finally realize it. It's also kind of a no-brainer too. And so.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, families have a very big presence in the building.
Yeah.
And so how are we caring for them and supporting them and educating them so that they can come and have a good experience with their loved one, have better communication with the team members, try and stay out of the executive director and administrator's office. So I think that obviously our central focus is the resident, which is totally appropriate. And the family piece has just been something that I think that has been neglected in years past.
Well, and that's a great segue to talk about your presentation tomorrow morning, the family's formula to thrive during the transition to memory care.
Yes.
And so you're going to give us a sneak peek. And so one of the first things that you mentioned to me was the calming down, right?
Calm down.
It seems like such a basic thing, but I'm sure there's more to it than just that.
Well, people don't wake up one day and just say, I'm going to move to memory care. Usually there's a lot of things that have precipitated that decision. Usually there's a hospital stay. Often there are family dynamics. There's very often a family member who doesn't agree with that decision to make that transition to memory care. So our caregivers, we know statistically, especially for caregivers who are caring for someone living with dementia, they have their own health consequences from providing that care. And so people are just not in the best frame of mind. They're not feeling healthy in their best. There's been a lot of things going on. So we just calm down. We need to calm our nervous system down so that we can start to think more clearly and have a better idea of what is sustainable with the situation and where do we either need to pull resources into the home or make that decision for the transition to memory care.
I was fortunate enough to not have to be like a primary caregiver for my parents, right? But helping my brother long distance try to do that, I saw the struggle of like, I gotta take care of them when he's got 2 daughters at home. And like, I can only imagine like the chaos and the struggle and the daily, like full-time job, all of those things. And so when you talk to them about calming down or trying to find the resources, I guess talk a little bit more about the process or how you get them to fully see that maybe that's needed to happen.
So the first thing that we start to focus on is what is going right, like what is actually working, because our brains are wired to solve the problems, obviously, for survival mode, fight, flight, or freeze. So the first thing that we're doing is focusing on what is working, what's going right, where am I actually having success? I have not met a family caregiver who at the end of the day said to themselves, I crushed it today. Like I was so good today, right? Usually at the end of the day, the family caregiver is categorizing all the things that they wish they could have done better or they feel they should have done better. So that is our first goal. It's like, let's just take a pause, take a moment. Okay, someone's in the hospital. They're getting some good care that they need right now at the hospital. We have more people on deck that are helping, more eyes and ears. So that is for sure the first step.
No, makes total sense. I know myself personally, sometimes it's like, what's the negative? What do I need to fix? And then I always get you should really think about what you did right today or what was your win. And so I think it makes so much sense. Well, the next thing that you mentioned about your presentation was the 3 C's.
Yes.
And for me, I love acronyms. I love things that are easy to remember. And so when you said 3 C's, I was like, all right, what are they? Let's write them down. Like, let's talk about them. So tell us about the 3 C's.
Yes, the 3 C's. So when I was thinking about the 3 pillars of caregiving, and I do think that this is with our team members in buildings and a lot with families, what are the I love a common denominator. What are the things that are across the board just going to be similar? Because we all feel so unique in our caregiving experience.
Yeah.
So the 3 C's are curiosity, communication, and compassion.
Okay.
So often with family dynamics, there's a lot of judgment happening. There's maybe someone who is not as far along on the scale of acceptance as some other family members. They're saying, I don't know what you're talking about. Mom seems fine to me.
Yeah.
But we know that mom put her shoes in the oven yesterday, right? So the opposite of judgment is curiosity. Yeah. So if we are feeling in disagreement about something, if we feel like something isn't going the way it needs to go, how can we just stop and be curious about it? If someone is behaving in a way that feels unfamiliar, how can we stop and be curious about it? Let's look at some context clues so that we have more information to figure out what we need to do next. So communication. I mean, we think we're communicating. People are hearing words, but we have all these filters in our brain. I had this great exercise in a program that I went to where they had us all draw a picture of a trunk. One word, draw a picture of a trunk.
Okay.
Well, guess what? Some people drew, what do you think?
Well, I already had 3 things pop into my head, right? I'm like, well, there's like the travel trunk, but then there's like the trunk of a tree or an elephant trunk,
trunk of a car.
That's trunk of a car, right?
Yeah.
So
when communication, part of it goes back to that curiosity is how are we slowing down and communicating in a way that feels clear, that people are connecting with, people are able to understand. And these things are, by the way, are really important to have with the person that we're caring for and also for ourselves. Like, be self-reflective. Am I being curious or judgmental? Am I communicating in a way that's clear? Or maybe I didn't speak up and actually share what I need. And so all of this leads to that third C, which is compassion. Are we being compassionate to the person that we're caring for? And how much compassion are we showing for ourselves?
Yeah.
Because this is the road less traveled. This is a very arduous, long, hard journey, especially when we're talking about a dementia diagnosis or cognitive impairment. And having compassion, I feel, is so incredibly critical.
Yeah. When I hear you talking through those three C's, I just keep going back to like so I told you about my brother and how he was the local caregiver. And I think about some of the family dynamics around the good and the bad that happened with that. And what you're saying here, had this been something that we could have used or thought of or had been a part of our process, probably would have made life easier for everybody involved.
Technology continues to drive changes in senior care, and that includes food service. E-Menu Choice is an award-winning point-of-service application for managing the dining function in senior living communities. This mobile, touchscreen-enabled software enhances the dining experience for residents while streamlining processes for staff. The flexibility and functionality of E-Menu Choice makes it an effective solution for any type of senior living environment, from independent and assisted living to skilled nursing facilities. It works for production kitchens or restaurant-style service with options for per meal or a la carte pricing and accommodates a variety of payments, including bill to account, meal credits, and credit cards. Created by a senior care provider with more than a century of experience serving older adults, E-Menu Choice eliminates communication barriers between staff and residents while enabling person-centered choices and greater resident satisfaction. E-Menu Choice, transforming dining for senior living.
Right. I mean, it's if we can agree on anything, we are making progress.
Yeah.
One of the other things that we talk a lot about, especially when we're transitioning within different levels of care, either in the home or a decision to move to senior living, but we're really focused on health, safety, and well-being. Because what I want for you or your family and us as family members is like, let's agree on some baselines.
Yeah.
Now, we may not agree on how to get to a solution, but can we all agree that dad waking up in the night and moving about the house is disrupting mom's sleep?
Yeah.
Like, that is factual. That, like, I think, yes, we can agree health, safety, and well-being for both, again, the caregiver and the person that we are caring for.
And I think sometimes the caregiver gets lost in the conversation because everybody focuses on the person getting the care, right? Like everybody, the family member is like, okay, how's mom doing? Well, what about this? What about this? And they don't think about that other person like, oh, well, that's impacting them as well. And so it's such an important piece that you're bringing and kind of explaining that it's all one big picture. It's not two separate things or three separate things.
Right. Well, and it's very easy as the caregiver to get lost in the shuffle because as things get more complicated, we shrink our world down and we shut people out, which can be very, very isolating, but it helps us have a sense of control. Also, there's a dignity component to this when we're thinking about someone that we love. And if we don't want them to present a certain way with their friend peer group or other family members, we start to decline, or it may be too hard to go out. We start to decline invitations out. So our caregiver world shrinks. And it's just something for people to be on high alert about because we'll ask a family caregiver, how are you? We need different questions and better questions. And sometimes asking isn't helpful, but saying, hey, I'm dropping off baked goods.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Baked goods are always helpful.
Absolutely.
Right. So instead of asking like, how are you? Because if someone is drowning, they may not know how to respond to that.
Well, it kind of leads me to think about the third thing you mentioned you're going to talk about in your presentation, but that I personally have learned a lot about over the last 2 or 3 years, just being an entrepreneur and having to like think more about like myself and how I impact things, it's mindfulness. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about why mindfulness is so important in all of this, and maybe how you kind of help coach and counsel people with that a little bit.
There's a lot of research around mindfulness and the physical and mental health benefits of it. So we really want to make sure that the emotional well-being and mental health of our caregivers is supported and feeling strong and healthy and whole. And mindfulness is such a great practice. It's something very simple. It's free. It doesn't take much time. It's something you could do at a stoplight while you're cooking dinner. It's easy.
Yeah.
And it can take shape in many different ways. So tomorrow when I speak, my presentation, I will be sharing several mindfulness practices with people, but then really tying it back to how that can support the family caregiver in those moments where you can just feel yourself get flushed with frustration. And we want to show up as best as we can for the person that we're taking care of.
So what would be one of your preferred or an easy one that you can share with our listeners? Because I need some expertise in this area. I think about getting frustrated with my kids, and like sometimes I'm just like, ugh. And so I know it's important. So what would be an example of that we could use?
We are designed as humans to experience a lot of different emotions. We tend to hover around, 3 to 5, happy, sad, angry, embarrassed.
Right.
But we are designed to feel emotions. It takes only 90 seconds for our bodies to physically process an emotion.
Yeah.
So if you are feeling that, sometimes that's what we need to be doing, is to just be sitting in it and sinking it and feeling it. But we want to have an exit strategy.
Right. Yes.
To pull ourselves out. So a practice that I think is really valuable, I created an entire module inside of my program.
Okay.
Focus on it is the practice of gratitude. We talk, I think, at a pretty high level about gratitude, like just what are you feeling grateful for? This is not positive, toxic psychology. Like the goal here is that we're actually generating a feeling in our body that kind of takes us to where we need to be when you're thinking a grateful thought. So if you're having a moment where it warrants actually feeling that negative emotion, it's okay to feel negative emotions. Right. We want to feel safe to do that. B, I created a 21-day gratitude practice. That 21 prompts. It's 2 minutes a day. It's free. It's easy. And you can obviously go to chat, have it create 300 days of prompts. Mine are specifically designed with seniors and caregivers in mind. But the goal is to, again, like calm that nervous system down so that you can be thinking more clearly, have a shift in your perspective, and be making that next decision.
I love the number 21 because whenever I hear somebody talking about it's like 21 days to make a habit.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, that's an intentional use of the number 21 right there.
Sean Acor, I think that's how you say his last name. He spent 12 years at Harvard researching happiness, and he did an experiment. One of his studies was with 80-year-old men who day one of the gratitude practice tested as pessimists. And after 21 consecutive days of 2 minutes a day of gratitude, they tested as low-level optimists. Oh. And that's actually important because optimism is a key component in aging well. So I did my own little experiment in my building when I worked in a nursing home with 8 residents, and I used call lights as a measurement.
Okay.
So I ran a call light report, and the call lights are the buttons that people push in senior living to call for help to come into the room when they need assistance. So we ran that first report. We did a 21-day gratitude practice, ran a call light report, and then I waited 30 days and ran another call light report just to see what happened. So after 21 days, the call lights for everyone in the program went down by half.
50%.
By 50%.
Wow.
And when we waited 30 days later, call lights did go back up, but not by the full amount where they were. Now, this was very unscientific. Now that I'm in the PhD program, I realize we're still, you don't know what we're, but over just to have that little small sample study and to run that program. I just think, what if every morning when we're helping people get up, get out of bed, get going, we had a gratitude practice with them? What could that look like? How could that change everything in the life of people?
Wow. That's kind of a powerful message of like, hey, I did this thing, and it's not very scientific, but it's pretty clear that gratitude process was really important and had tons of value.
Right.
And that's just one of many for mindfulness.
Absolutely. Box breathing is another one. Navy SEALs do it. We can too. Look up box breathing.
Yeah.
Practice that. One of the things that I appreciated about the gratitude practice was I asked a couple of the residents, why do you think this was successful for you? And they replied, I was really sitting here thinking about what I was going to share with you tomorrow. So instead of sitting here and feeling sorry for myself or, focus on pain or other things, I was really focused on this life reflection, life review, which is another very important component of our aging journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so much there. And I cannot wait to get the full presentation in the morning. As we wrap up here, I would love for you to talk to our listeners a little bit about Inspired Caring. Tell us how it works, how you operate, who you work with. Just kind of give us that information as we wrap up here.
Absolutely. So Inspired Caring has two components. One is there's a podcast, the Inspired Caring podcast.
There you go.
188 episodes, all really focused around how are we being inspired to care for the people that we love and care for ourselves. So I do a lot of guest expert interviews where people are sharing their resources. I want to make sure people have resources. So that's a great first stop. The second piece is I have this membership program and senior living communities and organizations that provide services and care to seniors are subscribing to it as an annual membership and then providing it at no charge for the families that they work with.
Okay.
So this could be locator companies, this could be home health, financial plan, like anybody who's working with seniors and they're like people who are trying to make decisions. This is a perfect program for them to have a membership to that they can provide as added value to their client.
Yeah, that is so cool. The value I imagine that brings to people. So tell our listeners how they can connect with you, learn more about Inspired Caring if they want to look into the service. And we'll definitely put a link to the podcast in the show notes so everybody can check that out. So tell us how they can connect you.
Yes. So on LinkedIn, I am Michelle Magner, one L in Michelle. That's tricky. It's important. Michelle Magner. And then on Instagram, my website are Inspired Caring. So the website is literally inspiredcaring.com.
Perfect. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for being here at the conference, stepping away to visit with me. And I cannot wait to listen to the full presentation tomorrow.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here today.
That's a good process.
Yes. Thank you so much. So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.